Hello, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Whitmore, and I'm the founder and director of the Protocol School of Palm Beach. And welcome to my weekly show. I have a real surprise in store for you today. I have, as you know, I've been talking about how to live an elegant life for the past few weeks. And so a few weeks ago, I was on a podcast with this particular guest, and she interviewed me all about etiquette. And I thought that she and I just clicked, and we have the same thought process. And she is our guest today, and I'll tell you just a little bit about Michele. So, Michele Lamoureux is an author, a speaker, and she's a podcast host. She's also a coach who guides women to love their lives and embrace their unique voice in the world. Now, men, if you're watching, please don't don't leave this show, because these tips are for you as well. Michele hosts the popular podcast for women titled The Good Life Coach. The show is downloaded in over 80 countries, where she interviews best-selling authors, leading experts, and extraordinary female entrepreneurs to inspire women to awaken their full potential. She also has a book which you can get for free, and we're going to share the link to that freebie for you at the end of the show. The book is titled Design a Life You Love, and Michele teaches self-love as the gateway to all you desire in life. So please help me welcome our special guest, Michele Lamoureux. Hi,
Hi.
Michele.
Hi, Jacqueline. Nice to be with you today.
Thank you. I now get to turn the tables. I was your guest. Now you get to be my guest.
It's true.
Well, first of all, for those who are watching who don't know you and they aren't familiar with your work, I'd like for you to share with all of us how you got involved in this particular topic, why it resonates with you, and why you
Yeah.
think it's important now.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think self-care and self-love are more important than they've ever been with the last 2 years we've been through, with all of the things that are happening around the world, even not including the pandemic. It seems like with the fires and everything, it just feels like every time you turn on the news,
Mhm.
there's so much sadness and destruction and these things happening. And we have to care for ourselves in order to show up for those we love, for our teams, for our bosses, for our colleagues, for everyone. And I got started, honestly, I worked in corporate for over 15 years. I loved it. And at some point I felt a calling to move into more heart-centered work. A friend was telling me about a coaching program she had been through, and I thought, gosh, that's for me.
Mhm.
And, one of the things I think we might be talking about today is listening to that inner voice and trusting it and following it. It doesn't mean you have to change your course completely, but by following that voice, it may take you on the path that you're meant to go in. And in fact, for me, that was the case. That's why I launched my podcast too, is to just help women get more connected to their voice, their truth, their desires, those inner whispers that I call, because that might be opening the door to their future.
Well, I wanted to ask, was there a catalyst that um, made you more interested in this topic? Was there something that happened in your life that made a bell go off in your heart or your head that said, this is my purpose? And I think you have found your purpose. And
Ah,
the guests that you have on your show are extraordinary. I mean,
thanks.
from best-selling authors to experts. And it's something that first of all, I think everyone should subscribe to your podcast, The Good
Thank you.
Life Coach. But was there a moment in time or an event that was the catalyst for you doing this?
I think it's a good question. I actually launched my podcast when I was 38 years old. It was back in 2008 when there was about 2,000 podcasts, not 2
Wow.
million, which there are today.
Wow,
And
you were one of
yes,
the pioneers.
I was. And I give credit to my husband because he did tell me, he said, this is the future. and the early adopters will benefit. I think Joe Rogan started his podcast in 2009. So, I mean, but I think he does a great show. But anyway, but I put it on hold because I got pregnant with my daughter. And I was newly married and I'd never been a mom. And I'd had a ton of career success. And I felt like I needed to focus on being there for her. And what I learned was that there was more that I wanted, but I didn't know how to be the mom that I wanted to be and be a business owner. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have role modeling for that. And my mom is somebody who has given completely selflessly, and still at the age of 80, if you walked into her home, she would make you feel like the most important person in the world, and you would feel so much love for her. But I didn't see her give that to herself. And so one of the things that occurred to me, so I relaunched the show 3 years ago at the age of 47. It was sort of like a little bit of a wake-up call. It's like, it's now or never, like, just get started. There's no perfect time, and it's okay to want more. And I don't, I know we talked on my podcast, you don't have kids, you have nieces and nephews, but I know that when I, would go out with my husband to his work events when we were newly married and I had my daughter, when I used to talk about the work I did as head of marketing for a law firm, people used to find me really interesting and what I did interesting. And when I would tell people I'm a stay-at-home mom, it was like crickets. Like nobody is like, oh, but there's not, and it's for the women out there who are full-time moms, I think it's an amazing role to have. And that's wonderful if that's what you wanted. But there's many of us who want more, and it's okay to want more. And I think that was the catalyst for me. It was to say, hey, we are kind of redefining how we can be in life, and it's okay to pursue whatever that is for you. And maybe it's just taking more courses or learning a language, anything that brings you more joy. Pursue it because you deserve it and you're worthy of that.
I was talking to one of my clients last night, and she is a new mom, and she organizes everyone's schedule, but yet she doesn't have a self-care schedule for herself.
Yes.
And I think that it only gets worse too as time goes on if we don't pay attention to the signals that
Yes.
that you talk about a lot in your podcast. Those signals, those little voices in our head that say, you need to do this and you should pay attention to that. But yet we're so busy, women and men. I don't want to
Yes.
negate the men, but women
Completely.
particularly are so busy taking care of everyone else that we oftentimes forget to take care of ourselves. And
Yes.
I'm also seeing that with women in my age category, where they, even though the children are gone and they're transitioning from a different stage in life, they're still not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what do we need to have for a wake-up call before we get it?
Yeah. I'm glad you actually said that, because I think, first of all, just to say to all those women, that is the norm and it's not your fault. Society there's been no sort of role modeling for how we're supposed to show up. And, people talk about that analogy of put your oxygen mask on first before you take care of everyone else. The reason I don't really love that, I think that's right in terms of that part of the message, is that the reason you're putting the oxygen mask on a plane is because it's going down. And I think from talking to so many 6, 7, 8-figure female entrepreneurs, I've asked them, I've interviewed them, what does your self-care look like? Most of them haven't even thought about it until there was that emergency, until there was that health scare. That's when they gave themselves permission. I know this woman who's a CEO of an 8-figure company, and she says, when I rest, Michelle, is when I get the flu every year.
Wow.
So we're holding ourselves to these standards where we feel that it's selfish. I just had a friend tell me this yesterday. She said, I know I just feel so selfish. I have all these amazing things in my life, beautiful children, a loving husband, and I feel guilty. I feel selfish for wanting to do more for me. And I thought, I'm literally having this interview, this conversation with this woman tomorrow. This is what we need to be talking about more. So if it's okay, should we talk about my definition of self-care?
Oh, please, let's do.
Yeah, when you were on my show, Jacqueline, I loved how you talked about etiquette is not just being about where you put a fork. It's about your behaviors and how you make other people feel. I think having a framework where you reshape how you think about it and perceive it is important. And so I think when people think of self-care, they think of getting a massage, a mani-pedi. Oh, that costs money, that takes time, or it's too selfish. I'm not going to, make that a regular habit. It'll be a once in a while kind of thing. But my definition of self-care is your ability to sustain and maintain your power in the world. We
Wow.
all want to give to everyone we love,
Mhm.
right? To our children, to our spouses, we just got a puppy, to our pets, to our aging parents. We're constantly outpouring. But if we're not filling this cup that we have, this glass, and
Mhm.
we're running on an empty tank every day, how are we going to actually give in the way that we want to show up for everybody and be our best selves in that way? So we have to start with ourselves because
Mhm.
we deserve that. We deserve that.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that. I have some questions that I really want to ask you because I know our time is so limited. And you talk a lot about intuition,
Yeah.
and I feel that I have I'm a little bit, what's the word, prophetic, that I can walk into a room and I can feel, maybe that's an empath, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I have the ability to scope out a room and look around and tell um, personalities and to figure out who does what. I don't know. It's just something that I was born with, but the intuition that we can have plays a part in self-care, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And I love what you talked about. It possibly could be, you might be what's called a highly sensitive person, an HSP, which I am as well. So for those who are so sensitive and pick up on energies in terms of self-care, it might mean creating more boundaries with people or, reducing how much media you take in or tuning out the social media and creating some structure around that. But in terms of the intuition, I love also what you said about having that within you. I think men and women, we all have it. I worked for 3 different self-made multimillionaires when I worked in corporate, directly for the bosses. They all happen to be men, and they all trusted their gut. And I think with women, oftentimes we're told not to listen to it, and we second guess ourselves, even though we have that knowing, like, don't take that job, or he's not the right guy, or whatever it might be. And one example I could give you, I was deciding whether to travel to see my parents for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And my gut was like, my intuition was so strong. It said, you need to go, all will be well. And I wanted to trust it, but with everything happening in the world, I let all the external messaging of, fear to kind of block it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And as I was walking to the plane, I was with my daughter and I prayed. I said, God, just give me a sign that all's going to be well. Like, I'm trusting this intuition, this inner knowing. Let me know. And so we get on the plane, and the woman sitting next to me had a mask on that said, Jesus, take the wheel. And I know not everyone's religious, but for me, it was perfect because I do believe in God and in Jesus. And that was the perfect sign for me. And so I think the more we can really trust when, like, our body's saying, hey, make that appointment. That pain you've been having, make that appointment. Please don't ignore that anymore. I think it's so important. That's why it's connected with self-care, because that connection is to our higher self, to our inner knowing, and it wants us to be well. It wants to guide us in the right direction. So we really need to honor it.
And I think the universe puts people in our path to help give us clues. I'll share a story that some people may know, but I know you don't know this story. But gosh, when I was 36 years old, I had a speaking engagement at Canyon Ranch Health Resort in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
And when you go to this health resort, they do a health assessment, and the nurse asks you a boatload of questions. And she asked me, "When was your last pap smear?" And I said, "Oh, I don't even remember, maybe 4 years ago." And she looked at me and her eyes got as big as saucers. She said, "Well, do you want to make an appointment now while you're here at the spa?" And I said, "Oh, no, no, I'll wait until I get home," thinking, well, I don't have any symptoms. I don't feel bad or anything like that. Well, I waited 3 more months. I ended up making an appointment with my gynecologist, and uh, lo and behold, they found the early stages of cervical cancer.
Wow.
And if I had not had that speaking engagement at Canyon Ranch, I would have never met that nurse who would have prompted me to go to the doctor. And so it was just serendipity at its finest.
I got
And
goosebumps.
yet, fortunately for me, I was able to catch it early and everything was taken care of. And here I am today. I'm healthy and well. So
Yes. Yes, I love that. That gave me goosebumps. I call those people living angels. They just enter our path, and sometimes it's just a one-off experience with them, just like what you said.
it is. It is.
Yeah,
We have to not only listen to ourselves, but maybe listen to our living angels.
right. Pay attention to those signs or the people that are being put in our path, and don't think of it as just coincidence. If it's been something you've been thinking of, just explore. Make that appointment. Do
Right.
what you did. I love that. That's a great example.
So, and so how do we hear our inner voice when life's so busy? And why is it important? I know we touched upon it because it can change our lives, but we all have that little inner voice, but
Yeah,
life does get in the way sometimes,
yeah.
and it is hard.
I think to the degree you can carve out time to journal and get connected. So if there's a challenge that you have or a question you want answered, I sit down with a pen and a pad of paper and I journal with that higher self and that inner knowing. And for me, I'll say, dear God, what do I need to know about this situation? And it's amazing, Jacqueline, when I write, the
Mhm,
things that come out are nothing that my logical brain could come up with. And oftentimes it starts with love yourself, love
mhm.
yourself. And then I can settle and breathe a little bit. Okay. So what else do I need to know? And then you make the time and space to get connected in that way, because when we're trying to think our way through, it's too easy to ignore it and just get busy with what we have to do. So carving out even just 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning or at night, and just pen to paper. It's
Mhm.
powerful.
Well, I agree, and I think there's power in pen to paper and in writing. I call that a brain dump. When you wake up first thing in the morning and you just write 1 or 2 pages, that's gets everything out of your mind onto the paper. It doesn't even have to make any sense. And in fact, I've got a book or a journal right here. Maybe you've even heard of it.
I
It's called,
knew it, Julia. 100%. I picked up that book when I was 28, and used to do it every day. I don't do it, and I don't do the morning pages anymore. But I love
yes,
that idea where you do. For me now, it's more directed of like, okay, conversation. What do I need to know? And writing out like, what do I need to know about this situation? Is this the right healthcare provider for this, procedure? I'll ask, and as I'm doing that, I'm checking in, because you can feel it. And I'm actually at the point now too where I've done this for so many years that I can literally, like with the trip to Boston, I can sit and put my hands on my heart and feel into it, and I know I can just know. But even knowing, I ask for the sign, even knowing I'm still looking for more information. That's our minds we want certainty, and we can't always have that.
that's true. And we ask all our girlfriends, what do you think? What do you think?
100%. Exactly. That's right. That's right.
I'd be curious to know if those CEOs you work for, if they call all their guy friends and say, what do you think? What do you think?
That's so interesting. I think honestly, from what I observed, one used to say, I feel it in my bones. And I think it was just such a strong knowing that he had learned that he could trust it. And truthfully, he was going totally against the industry standard and where he was going. So nobody would have said that was the right path. He was going some direction, very much like a visionary, way against what was the norm. And so, yeah, I think men, and I shouldn't generalize, I don't know. In this case, these men, they just felt it and it worked. It worked for them. And we can do it too. And we should be doing it too.
Well, let's talk about if you have 15 minutes a day. What are you mentioned the writing, and this doesn't have to cost a fortune. And as you said,
Right.
this is not we're not talking about massages here. We're not talking about facials. We're talking about things that you can do that cost absolutely nothing. But if you
That's
have
right.
15 minutes a day, which a lot of us think we don't even have that, but
Right.
I think we can carve out that amount of time. But
Yeah.
what would you recommend
Yeah.
for that small amount of time that we could do?
Yeah. I love this question. And also, I'm going to even give people permission to break up the 15 minutes. So it doesn't have to be 15 consecutive minutes.
I
So if
like
you,
that.
right? So we just got a puppy. I used to sit and meditate in the morning. That's not happening because he could be up at 5 and my day's starting with his needs. So the meditation's happening at night. So I would say, depending on what fuels you. So I love to sit in meditation about 10 minutes. You're new to it, doesn't feel comfortable, start with 5. So we can do 2 different ways. So for me, it'd be 10 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of writing what I'm grateful for, and 5 minutes sitting with a cup of tea every day. This is self-care for me. I just love just the ritual of sipping on a hot cup of tea. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. Somebody could do 5 minutes of gratitude, 5 minutes of journaling, 5 minutes of meditation. Those, 3 little things that fuel you. And I have to just reinforce one thing that everyone needs to lock down: sleep, sleep, sleep,
Huge,
sleep.
huge, huge.
So really getting yourself to bed at a good time. If you're the type of person who wakes up with their to-do list in your head at 3 in the morning, get it down on a piece of paper, get the room dark, do what you need to do. There's so many great resources, Matthew Walker's book, um, about what to do to lock in your sleep. But that's what sets you up for the next day,
I
right?
was talking to a friend of mine who actually happens to be an Olympic gold medalist in Canada, and
Wow.
she's part of my accountability group that I belong to, and she said every night or every at the end of every day, she records her wins, what she's accomplished, her daily wins, and
I
she
love it.
keeps track of all the things that she's proud of, whether it's in her personal life, professional life, relationships, all of the above. And it kind of puts a bow around the day. And she said, that way I can go to sleep at night knowing I have accomplished something. And
Love
it
it.
helps me sleep so much better.
I love
So
it.
all the things that you talk about the dark room, I do all of that. The cool room, turn the AC down to
That's
70,
right. 68. Right, right, right.
on the sound machine,
Yes.
listen to an evening meditation. I do all of that, but I love the fact that she takes it a step further and she writes down her win for the day so that she says,
I
okay,
love it.
I'm
I
done.
love it. And the other thing they could do is with the gratitudes that we talked about. If you don't have time to write it or the energy, because I think people are so depleted, honestly, Jacqueline. They're so depleted right now. Even just sitting in bed and just, what am I grateful for? And just really feeling into 4 or 5 different things before you fall asleep is a beautiful way to kind of do what she's doing, which is, filling her cup. She's filling her cup before she sleeps.
It is. It's all beautiful. So, well, we are out of time, and I just love your podcast. I
Thank
love
you.
the things that you have to say and the people you interview. How I don't know how you get these fabulous guests, but you just do. And I'm just going to show the URL to the Good Life Coach on our screen. And um, who is your upcoming guest?
Um, well, I think everyone needs to listen to the interview that we did because I've been getting such great feedback. I have a woman named Polly Alexander who's going to be talking about mastering money and your energetic relationship to bringing in money, even if you don't have the abundance mindset yet.
Wow, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Well, what is in the future for Michele Lamoureux? You've already got this successful podcast. You are raising a successful daughter,
Oh.
and you have a new puppy. What is next for you?
Honestly, I'm taking my own advice. So for 10 years, I've had an inner whisper for a book that's a fiction book, not a nonfiction. And I've started it and I've stopped it. And it's absolutely a priority for 2022 to get the book written and just allow it, just even for the creative expression. And we'll see where it goes. But I need to honor that voice. And that's really kind of at the heart of partially what we're talking about today in terms of the self-care. Listen to your voice. Do what makes you happy. You deserve that. That's what life's about. We're here to be happy and have a good time.
Yes. And now that you've put it out into the universe, it's got to happen.
I have to do it. I have to do it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So that's what's next.
I put this sticky note on my computer this week. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't exist.
Love it. I love it.
So that's what we have to do in order to just keep trekking along and keep accomplishing our goals.
Absolutely.
So,
and thank you for the work you're doing, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. Really, it's so important, the messages that you share about how we're treating others and showing up.
I appreciate that, Michele. So thanks again for being my guest. And I want to say thanks to everybody for watching. And please check out Michele's podcast by going to the Good Life Coach. And by the way, you do have a freebie there. You have a copy of your book, don't you?
I do. It's called Design a Life You Love. And it's all about actually what we're talking about, self-love and self-care. And yeah, everyone can download it for free. It'll come right to their inbox.
I know. I've already taken a look at it. It's fabulous.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.